Why was she the only one standing against the wall? The Tactical Operations Center smelled like stale coffee and gun oil. The air conditioning rattled overhead, fighting a losing battle against the Syrian heat. Inside, the SEAL operators clustered around the map table, big men with beards and tattoos, moving with the kind of easy confidence that comes from being the best at what you do. They were laughing, adjusting gear, shoulder-checking each other with the casual intimacy of brothers who'd bled together. And in the back of the room, spine pressed against the plywood wall, stood Chief Petty Officer Valeria Petrova, alone. She kept her arms crossed. Her expression was practiced, neutral, the kind of mask you wear when you know you're being watched. She wasn't one of them. She knew it. They knew it. The silence between glances said everything words didn't need to. Lieutenant Elias Miller stepped into the projector light. He was all sharp angles and tired eyes, the kind of officer who carried every casualty in the gray spreading through his temples. "All right, settle down," he said, and the room went quiet. "Intel has confirmed the location of target Obsidian. He's holed up in a compound in the Akhdar Valley." He tapped the map. A red dot danced over jagged contour lines. High ground, 8,000 feet, thin air, steep angles. "We insert via Halo, patrol 3 clicks to the target, secure the HVT, and exfil via Helos at LZ Bravo." "Standard snatch and grab," Chief Breaker muttered from the front row. He was built like a vending machine with a sledgehammer for a personality. Then he turned. His gaze drifted past Miller to the woman in the back. "Except for the luggage." The room went quiet, not empty quiet, heavy quiet, the kind filled with unspoken doubt. Valeria didn't flinch. She locked eyes with Breaker. Her eyes were pale gray ghost eyes. "If the luggage is too heavy for you, Chief," she said evenly, "you can leave it on the runway." A few low chuckles rippled through the room. Breaker's jaw tightened. Miller cut through it. "Stow it. Chief Petrova is attached to us for a reason. That valley is a sniper's paradise. We need eyes that can reach out and touch someone from a kilometer away. She's the best long gun asset JSOC could spare." "We have snipers, LT," Breaker argued, though his tone stayed respectful. "Tex and D-Bar are qualified." "Tex and D-Bar are door kickers who can shoot straight," Miller corrected. "Petrova is a pure scout. She reads the wind like you read a magazine. She's our Overwatch. End of discussion." Miller looked at Valeria. For a second the professional veneer slipped. A flicker of concern, maybe warning. "Petrova, you'll be detached from the main element. You'll take the high ridge sector north. It's solitary. If you get compromised up there, we can't get to you quickly." "I work better alone, sir," Valeria said. Her voice was smooth, cool. "Let's hope so," Miller said, turning back to the map. "Because according to the latest SIGINT, Obsidian has hired protection, Chechen mercenaries, and there are rumors of a counter-sniper operating in the valley. Call sign the Butcher. He uses a 12.7 millimeter. If he sees you first, you won't hear the shot." Valeria looked at the map. She memorized the elevation lines, the choke points, the kill zones. She felt the familiar itch in her fingertips, the anticipation of recoil. She knew what the team saw when they looked at her. A woman, an outsider, a liability. She would have to prove them wrong, or she would die up there on the rocks. "We step off at 200, Miller concluded, killing the projector light. "Check your gear. Positive ID is mandatory on all engagements. No cowboy shit. Dismissed." As the men filed out, shoulder-checking and murmuring in operational shorthand, Miller held back. He waited until the room was empty, just him and Valeria. He walked over, stopping just outside personal space. The hierarchy softened into something more complex. "You pushed Breaker," Miller said quietly. "He pushed first," Valeria replied. "He's protective. He's lost guys." Miller looked down at her. "Val, that ridge. The temperature is going to drop to -10 tonight. You'll be static for at least 6 hours." "I brought a sweater," she said. A faint, dry humor touched her lips. Miller didn't smile. He looked at her hands. Then her eyes. Just keep your head down. I need you to cover us, not be a hero. I'm not a hero, Elias, she said, using his first name for the first time that day. Her voice barely a whisper. I'm just the insurance policy. Yeah, Miller said, turning toward the door, the mask of command sliding back into place. Let's hope we don't have to file a claim. Valeria watched him leave. She reached down and touched the polymer stock of the Mk-22 advanced sniper rifle leaning against her pack. The metal was cold. It was the only thing in this world that had never lied to her. She hoisted the pack. 50 pounds of gear settled onto her shoulders. The weight felt good. It felt like purpose. Outside, the sun was setting over the Syrian desert, painting the sky in violent shades of bruised purple and blood red, a prelude to what was coming. And somewhere in the back of her mind, a small voice whispered a question she couldn't answer. Would they trust her when it mattered? Or would she die alone on that ridge, forgotten? What does it feel like to step into absolute darkness at 25,000 feet? The ramp of the C-130 yawned open, a maw of black. The air inside the cargo hold was sucked out, replaced by a screaming wind that tasted of ice and ozone. Valeria checked her oxygen mask. The rubber seal was tight against her skin. Beside her, the men of Havoc team were hulking silhouettes bathed in red tactical light, ghosts waiting to be born. Miller gave the signal. One by one they vanished off the ramp. Valeria stepped into the void. Gravity took her. The world became a rush of wind and adrenaline. She stabilized her fall, arching her back, checking the illuminated altimeter on her wrist. 20,000 feet. 15,000. The mountains below were black teeth waiting to chew them up. At 4,000 feet she pulled the cord. The chute snapped open with a violent jerk, arresting her fall. Silence rushed back in, sudden and absolute. She navigated the canopy toward the designated drop zone, a narrow shelf of rock kilometers from the target. She hit the ground with a practiced roll, shedding the chute and burying it under stones. Within 3 minutes she was invisible. The ridge was a desolate place. Jagged rock and windswept dirt, perched high above the valley floor like the spine of some ancient dead god. Valeria moved with methodical precision, stepping only on rock, avoiding loose gravel that could betray her position. She found her nest, a natural depression between two boulders that offered concealment and a perfect angle on the valley below. She unpacked her gear with ritualistic care. The Mk-22 came out first. She assembled the suppressor, checked the optic, confirmed the zero. Then the spotting scope, the rangefinder, the ballistic computer. Finally, the ghillie netting, which she draped over herself until she became part of the landscape. Below in the valley, the SEAL team was moving like shadows. She could see their infrared strobes through her night vision, tiny pulses of light invisible to the naked eye. They were 3 clicks out from the target compound, right on schedule. Valeria settled in. She hydrated, ate a protein bar. Then she went still, sniper still. The kind of stillness that looks like death. Hours passed. The temperature dropped. Her breath came out in white clouds that dissipated into the night. The cold bit through her layers, settling into her bones. She ignored it. Pain was just information, and information could be filed away. At 3:40, Miller's voice crackled in her earpiece. Viper, this is Havoc 1 actual. We're 5 mics out from the objective. Give me a sitrep on the valley. Valeria pressed her eye to the scope. She scanned the compound below. Mud walls, flat roofs, 2 stories, thermal signatures moving inside, guards on the perimeter. Havoc 1 Viper. I count 4 enemy personnel on the north wall, 2 on the south gate. No visible heavy weapons. You have a clear approach from the west side ravine. Copy Viper, moving to position. She watched them move, fluid, professional. They reached the compound wall and stacked up. Breacher set the charge. 3 seconds later, the door exploded inward. The team poured through. Muzzle flashes strobed inside the compound. Controlled violence. Surgical. Then everything went wrong. A pickup truck with a heavy machine gun mounted in the bed, roared around the corner of the compound. The barrel of the DSHK swung toward the breached door. Valeria didn't think. She exhaled, squeezed. The suppressed rifle coughed. 700 meters downrange, the gunner's head snapped back. He crumpled. The technical swerved, driverless, and crashed into a wall. "Good hit, Viper," Miller transmitted. "Target secured, we're moving to exfil." But Valeria's attention was elsewhere. High on the opposite ridge, a kilometer away, something had moved. A shadow where there shouldn't be one. She adjusted her scope, increased magnification. And there, hidden in a cleft of rock, she saw him. The butcher. He was already in position. His rifle, a massive anti-material weapon, was trained on the valley floor, on Miller's team. Her pulse spiked. She keyed her radio. "Havoc 1, you have a counter-sniper, northeast ridge, 1,000 meters from your position." Miller's voice came back tight. "Can you take the shot?" Valeria ran the calculations in her head. Range to target, 1,200 meters. Wind, gusting, variable, angle, extreme uphill. The butcher was in defilade, only his upper torso visible. It was a shot most snipers wouldn't take. "Stand by," she whispered. She adjusted her scope, dialed in the elevation. The butcher shifted. His finger moved to the trigger. He was about to fire. Valeria's world narrowed to the reticle, the crosshairs settling on the dark mass of his head. She controlled her breathing, heartbeat steady. The wind dropped for just a second. She squeezed. The rifle kicked. The bullet flew. 1,200 meters away, the butcher jerked. He slumped forward. His rifle clattered down the rocks. Valeria exhaled. Threat neutralized. "Viper, you're a goddamn artist," Breaker's voice cut in. There was something in his tone, not quite respect, but close. Valeria allowed herself the smallest of smiles. Maybe she wasn't Luggage after all, but the night wasn't over, and something in the darkness was still watching. How much can a person endure before they break? The sun rose over the ridge like a slow burn, washing the rocks in shades of copper and gold. Valeria had been in position for 8 hours. Her body ached. Her fingers were numb. The cold had seeped into her joints, making every small movement a negotiation with pain, but she stayed. The team was still 3 hours from the extraction point. She was their eyes, their shield. At 6:20, Miller's voice crackled again. "Viper, we've got movement on our 6. Multiple contacts. Looks like reinforcements coming up from the village." Valeria glassed the valley. She counted them. 15, maybe 20. Armed men moving in a loose formation, converging on the SEAL team's position. "Havoc 1, I have eyes on approximately 20 enemy personnel. Light arms, RPGs. They're moving to cut you off from LZ Bravo." "Copy, can you slow them down?" Valeria adjusted her position. She chambered a round. "Affirmative, engaging now." The first shot took the lead man. He dropped. The others scattered, seeking cover, but Valeria was patient. She waited for them to move. When they did, she fired again and again. Each shot was deliberate, calculated. She wasn't trying to kill them all. She was trying to make them afraid, to make them hesitate. And it was working. But then the radio went silent. "Havoc 1, say again your last," Valeria transmitted. Nothing, just static. "Havoc 1, this is Viper. Radio check." Still nothing. Her stomach tightened. She scanned the valley, searching for the team, and then she saw it. They were pinned, trapped behind a crumbling mud wall. Dust geysers erupted around them as rounds chewed up their cover. A DSHK heavy machine gun had them locked down. They were blind, and they were dying. Valeria keyed her radio again. "Havoc 1, if you can hear me, I'm moving to a new position. I can get eyes on that gun. Hold tight." She didn't wait for a response. She broke down her nest, packed her gear, and moved. The ridge was treacherous, loose rock, sheer drops. She moved fast, too fast, her boots slipping on scree. But she didn't slow down. The team needed her. She found a new position 50 meters east. She set up, glassed the valley, and there it was. The DSHK, mounted on the back of another technical. The gunner was hammering the SEAL's position, chewing through their cover like paper. Valeria ranged him, 600 meters, steep downhill angle, moving target. She steadied her breathing, adjusted for wind. The crosshairs settled on the gunner's chest. She squeezed. The rifle barked. The gunner jerked and fell. The DSHK went silent. But in that moment something changed. A sound, high and sharp like a whip crack, and then the world exploded. The impact hit her helmet with the force of a sledgehammer. Her head snapped back. The world went white, then black, then white again. She was on her back, the sky spinning above her. Ringing, everything was ringing. She tried to move. Her arms wouldn't respond. She tried to breathe. Her lungs wouldn't fill. Blood, there was blood, so much blood. It pooled under her head, dark and warm, soaking into the dirt. Her radio earpiece was dangling by a frayed wire. Through the static, she heard Miller's voice. Distant, fatting. Moving to Bravo, taking heavy fire. We are combat ineffective. Her fingers curled into the soil, clawing for purchase. She wasn't dead, not yet, and she could hear them dying. Pain roared through her skull, a migraine made of fire and broken glass. Her vision was fractured, double, triple. The right side of her head felt wrong, wet, hollow. She reached up with a trembling hand and touched her helmet. Her fingers found the furrow, deep, jagged. The 12.7-millimeter round had glanced off the side of her helmet, tearing through the composite material and taking a piece of her skull with it. She was alive, barely, and the butcher or someone like him was still out there. Valeria rolled onto her stomach. Nausea surged. She vomited into the dirt. Her head swam, but she forced herself up onto her elbows. Her rifle was 3 feet away. She crawled to it. Every movement was agony. Her vision tunneled, darkened. She blinked, fought it back. She couldn't help them if she passed out. She couldn't help them if she died, so she refused to do either. She dragged the rifle to her, checked the chamber, still loaded. She pulled herself behind a rock, set up. Her hands were shaking. She tried to steady them, couldn't. Blood dripped into her left eye. She wiped it away with the back of her hand. Her right eye, it wouldn't focus. The world on that side was dark, blurry, gone. But her left eye, it still worked. And that was enough. Can one person hold the line when everything is falling apart? Valeria pressed her eye to the scope. The world swam in and out of focus. She blinked, forced clarity. Below, the valley was chaos. The SEAL team was fighting for their lives, outnumbered, outgunned. She could see them moving, darting from cover to cover, returning fire, but the enemy was closing in. She scanned for targets, found one, a man with an RPG moving to flank Miller's position. She put the crosshairs on him, exhaled, squeezed, the rifle kicked. The man dropped. The RPG clattered to the ground, unfired. Another target, a fighter with an AK advancing on Breaker. She fired, he fell. And another, and another. Her world became a rhythm. Breathe, aim, fire, breathe, aim, fire. Each shot was a prayer. Each hit was a small miracle, because she shouldn't be able to do this. Not with one eye, not with a fractured skull, not with blood pooling under her cheek. But she did it anyway. The enemy began to realize they were being hunted. They scattered, took cover, started scanning the ridgeline. Valeria knew it was only a matter of time before they spotted her. She was exposed, vulnerable, but she didn't move. If she moved, the team would die. So she stayed, and she kept firing. Minutes bled into each other. Her magazine ran dry. She reloaded. Her fingers were clumsy, uncooperative. She dropped a round, cursed, loaded the next, chambered it, kept shooting. Below, Miller's voice crackled over the radio. "Viper, Viper, do you copy?" His voice was desperate. She wanted to answer, but speaking required energy she didn't have. She stayed silent, kept shooting. Another magazine, then another. Her rifle was hot, the suppressor glowing. She could smell the burnt carbon, taste it. Her vision was narrowing, the edges going dark. Tunnel vision, not good. She was losing too much blood. A shadow moved on the opposite ridge. High, hidden, Valeria swung her rifle toward it, magnified the image, and there he was, another sniper, not the butcher, someone else. He was scanning the valley, searching. His rifle swung toward her position. She didn't have time to think. She fired. The bullet flew. The enemy sniper jerked, but he didn't fall. He was wearing armor. The round had hit his plate carrier. He flinched back behind cover, alive but shaken. Valeria's breath came in ragged gasps. She'd missed the kill. And now he knew where she was. She needed to move. But her body wouldn't respond. Her legs were lead. Her vision was fading. She blinked, tried to stay conscious. The enemy sniper re-emerged. This time his rifle was pointed directly at her. She saw the muzzle flash, heard the crack, felt the round snap past her head so close it displaced the air. She rolled, found new cover, set up again. Her hands were shaking violently now. Blood was running down her neck, into her vest. She was cold, so cold. She put the crosshairs on the enemy sniper, aimed for the small gap between his helmet and his collar. The only exposed skin. It was an impossible shot. At this range, with one eye, with a concussion, with everything. She fired anyway. The enemy sniper dropped. Valeria collapsed back against the rock. Her rifle fell from her hands. She was done. Finished. She had nothing left. Below in the valley, the enemy fighters were retreating. The SEALs were moving, advancing toward the extraction point. They were going to make it. They were going to live. And Valeria, she was going to die here on this ridge, alone. But as the darkness closed in, she felt something. Not regret, not fear, just a quiet sense of completion. She had done her job, she had kept them safe, and that was enough. The last thing she heard before the world went black was the sound of helicopters in the distance. The sound of rescue. But whether it was for her or for them, she couldn't tell. What happens when the body gives up but the soul refuses? Valeria opened her eye. The world was upside down, sideways, wrong. She was on her back, staring at the sky. The sun was too bright. It burned. She tried to move, couldn't. Her limbs were distant things, disconnected, someone else's. Voices close, urgent. Jesus Christ, Miller, look at this. Is she breathing? I don't know, check for a pulse. Hands on her neck, rough, searching, then a voice, Miller's voice. She's alive, she has a pulse. Valeria stirred. A low, agonizing moan escaped her lips. Her good eye fluttered open, unfocused, glassy. Shapes moved above her, faces. She tried to lift her head. The weight was too much. Her lips moved. No sound came out. Miller leaned in close, put his ear to her mouth. Don't try to talk, we got you. You're going home. She grabbed his wrist. Her grip was surprisingly strong, a desperate claw-like clutch. She pulled him down an inch. Did we get him? Miller looked at her, at the devastation on her face, the evidence of the 29 men she had killed to keep them safe, the empty water bladder, the blood-soaked dirt, tears hot and unbidden stung his eyes. Yeah, Val, he choked out. We got him. We got them all. You did good. You did so good. She exhaled, a long, shuddering sigh. The tension left her body. Her hand slipped from his wrist and hit the dirt. Crash status, the medic yelled, sliding into the nest. He took one look at her pupils and cursed. Blown pupil on the right, posturing, she's herniating, sir, we need to move her now. Load her up, Miller commanded, grabbing the drag handle of her vest. They moved with frantic efficiency. They didn't have a litter, so they carried her, Miller taking the shoulders, Breaker taking the legs. They ran back toward the helo, heads ducked against the rotor wash. They threw her onto the floor of the cabin. The medic jumped on top of her, ripping open his kit. Go, go, go. Miller pounded on the bulkhead. The Black Hawk lurched into the air, banking hard away from the mountain. Miller sat on the floor, holding Valeria's hand. It was cold, so cold. The medic was working frantically, inserting an airway, cutting away her sleeve to find a vein. I can't get a line. Veins are collapsed. I'm going intraosseous. He drilled a needle directly into her shin bone to deliver fluids. Valeria didn't flinch. She was staring at the ceiling of the helicopter, her eye wide and unseeing. Suddenly, the high-pitched whine of the portable monitor changed. Beep, beep, then silence, a flat, continuous tone. "She's coding," the medic screamed. "No pulse, starting compressions." Miller watched as the medic laced his fingers and began to slam his weight into Valeria's chest. The brutal physicality of CPR jerked her broken body with every thrust. 1, 2, 3, 4. "Come on, Val," Miller yelled, squeezing her hand until his knuckles turned white. Don't you dare quit on me now." The helicopter sped toward the horizon, a metal bird carrying a ghost who was deciding whether to stay or go. How do you measure the worth of a life saved? 6 months later, Walter Reed National Military Medical Center, Bethesda, Maryland. The war was loud, but peace was deafening. Valeria sat in a wheelchair by the window, looking out at the manicured green lawns of the hospital grounds. It was raining, a soft, gray drizzle that washed the world clean, so different from the arid, violent dust of Syria. She reached up and touched the black patch covering her right eye. The doctors had saved the globe, but the optic nerve had been severed by the hydrostatic shock of the bullet's impact. The vision was gone forever. Along her temple, a jagged silvery scar ran into her hairline, marking the place where a titanium plate now replaced a section of her skull. She had headaches, bad ones. Sometimes her balance failed her and the room would spin, just like it had on the ridge. The Navy called it permanent disability. She called it the cost of doing business. There was a knock on the door, not the tentative tap of a nurse. 3 solid, rhythmic raps. "Enter," she said. Her voice was stronger now, though the rasp would never fully leave. Lieutenant Commander Elias Miller walked in. He was in his service dress blues, the ribbons on his chest a colorful testament to a career spent in the shadows. He looked older. The gray at his temples had spread. He stopped just inside the door, holding his cover in his hands. He looked at her, really looked at her, with a mixture of reverence and sadness that made Valeria want to look away. "You look good, Val," he lied gently. "I look like I got hit by a truck, Elias," she replied. A faint smile touched her lips. "Or a 12.7mm round." Miller chuckled, walked over to pull up a chair. He sat down, resting his elbows on his knees. "The team sends their best. Breaker wanted to come, but they're spinning up for another rotation. He told me to tell you he owes you a beer. A keg, actually." "Tell him to keep his head down," Valeria said softly, "and to check his corners." Miller reached into the inside pocket of his jacket. He pulled out a blue velvet box and placed it on the small table between them, next to a plastic cup of water and a bottle of painkillers. "The ceremony is scheduled for next week," Miller said. "The Secretary of the Navy wants to pin it on you himself. It's the Navy Cross, Val, second only to the Medal of Honor. They don't give those out for participation." Valeria looked at the box. She didn't open it. She knew what was inside, a piece of metal in the shape of a cross. It was heavy, heavier than the rifle. "I didn't do it for the medal," she said. "I know," Miller said, his voice intense. "You did it for us. The after-action report. Val, the ballistics guys are still trying to figure out that shot on the truck. 700 meters on a moving target, with a severe concussion and one eye. They're calling it impossible." "It wasn't impossible," she whispered, looking back out at the rain. "It was necessary." Silence stretched between them. It wasn't awkward anymore. It was the comfortable silence of two people who had seen the edge of the world and come back. "I'm being medically retired," she stated, not as a question, but as a fact. "I know," Miller said. "I tried to fight the board, but with the vision loss." "It's okay," she interrupted. She turned to face him, her single gray eye clear and sharp. "I'm tired, Elias, I think I've hunted enough ghosts." Miller nodded, swallowing hard. He stood up, placing his hand on her shoulder. He squeezed it, a grounding touch. "You're not a ghost, Valeria. You're the reason 20 men are going home to their families this Christmas. You're the reason I'm standing here." He leaned down, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Thank you." He straightened up, put his cover back on, and snapped a sharp, slow salute. It wasn't a salute to a subordinate. It was a salute to a superior. Valeria returned it, her hand steady. Miller turned and walked out, leaving the door slightly ajar. Valeria picked up the blue box. She opened it. The gold and white ribbon gleamed under the fluorescent lights. It was beautiful, it was useless. She closed the box. Her gaze drifted to the corner of the room. On the shelf, sitting next to a vase of flowers, was her helmet, battered, the camouflage paint scuffed and burned. On the right side, a deep, jagged furrow cut through the composite material, the physical record of the moment she died and came back to life. She stared at the dent. It looked like an eye, an unblinking hollow eye staring back at her. Valeria smiled, a genuine, tired smile. She reached for her cane and pushed herself up from the wheelchair. She walked to the window, leaning against the glass. The rain was stopping. The sun was breaking through the clouds, casting a long golden beam across the hospital lawn. She was alive. And sometimes that's the only medal that matters. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts. And when the world doubts you, when they call you luggage, when they see weakness where there is only quiet strength, you don't argue, you don't plead, you don't prove yourself with words. You prove yourself in the moment that matters most. When the bullets are flying, when the team is dying, when no one believes you can survive, you do the impossible, not for glory, not for recognition, but because 20 men you barely know are counting on you to bring them home. And in that moment on that ridge, with blood pooling under your shattered helmet and darkness closing in, you become something more than a soldier. You become the line between life and death, between failure and victory, between forgotten and unforgettable. And when they finally see what you've done, when they understand the price you paid, they won't remember the doubt. They'll only remember that you stood when everyone else fell. That you fired when your body begged you to quit, that you saved them all, even when saving yourself seemed impossible, because that's what quiet strength does. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't demand respect. It simply endures. It simply protects. It simply refuses to break. And in the end, that's the only proof that ever mattered.